Well, hello, everybody. Happy Monday. I hope you're enjoying your day so far. You are listening to Act 3 on CHLY 101.7 FM. I am with a whole bunch of people today with the Artists Collective Theatre, or ACT. Think of it, Act 3, only their ACT Theatre. And they're going to talk to us about their upcoming productions and all the wonderful things that they've been doing here in Nanaimo. So welcome to the program, everybody. It's lovely to see so many faces. I know that our listeners are going to hear you by your voices. We'll start with you, Amanda Cutting. Welcome to the program. How are you?
Hi, I'm well. Thank you so much.
It's so good to see you and your team together again. I love having you on the show. So welcome, welcome. I'm just going to kind of go around to each of our team and ask them a little bit about who they are and how they joined your theater group. And then Amanda will come back for you towards the end there for that description. So I'm going to ask Brendin, you're the first person that comes up on my YouTube channel screen. Brendin, tell us a little about yourself.
Hi, I'm Brendin Savoy. I am the stage manager for this show, being Genesis. One of the reasons I found ACT was actually through a university show that I did called Puffs. Um, and I actually got reached out to by Amanda along with a couple of people to audition for her summer showcase event, and it was a super amazing opportunity, and it really helped me as an artist bring myself to the front of the professional stage. And I really appreciate all the opportunities I've been given by this theater collective. um and that's about it. I've
Well, that's
been
a
with ACT for the
lovely
last year.
start. It's a lovely, lovely start, Brendin. Thank you so much. Yes, the summer shows were really outstanding. We'll talk a little bit more about them a little bit later on, but wow, were they fabulous. Aimee, you were part of that as well. How'd you like to share with our audience a little about you?
Hi, I'm Aimee Sweetapple. I'm in the same boat as Brendin. Amanda found me through our show Puffs. And yeah, this is my first outside experience with theater, like professional theater with school. Well, outside of school, sorry. And I wasn't a part of the summer festival, but I did watch it and it was absolutely amazing. And so when Amanda reached out to do the Genesis, I was like, I'm in. I want to be in it and work with all of you. And it's so amazing.
That
Yeah.
sounds fantastic. Yeah, it was really extraordinary, and I'm really glad. What a beautiful name you have, Aimee Sweetapple. I think that's going to make you a star right off the
Oh,
top.
thank you.
Ben Francis, how are you today? Thank you for coming.
I'm great. Thank you for having me. Um, I'm Ben Francis. I play Percy Shelley in Genesis. I'm also artistic producer with the company Artist Collective Theatre. I've been with the company for just over 10 years now, since we were based in Calgary, Alberta. And it's just been an amazing experience for me, not just creatively, but business-wise. I've learned a lot about how a theatre company is run, and continue to find the great creative outlet. So
The theater draws you in and it sort of keeps you and holds you in a way that no other no other art does. And by the way, all arts have their place for that. That's not what I mean, but there's something about the theater that is just so different from everything else. So thanks for your share, Ben. Erin, how lovely to have you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having us. It's lovely to be here.
It's
Yeah,
lovely to have you as well. Tell us a little about yourself.
yeah, absolutely. So this is my first production with ACT. I'm an actor from the mainland, and I moved to Nanaimo. It'll be my 2 years in Nanaimo, October 15th, which is very
Woohoo!
yeah.
Welcome, welcome.
And it's just so amazing to be involved in the theater scene and kind of expanding. I didn't know that Nanaimo was so big for theater when I moved here. And it was my stepmom on the phone, actually. She mentioned, she's like, oh yeah, I think they've got a pretty big theater scene. So I've just been immersing myself in that. And it's wonderful to be in this production. Just working with this material is so fun, and it's not something that I anticipated to happen, but it's amazing.
Well, Erin, congratulations on your 2 years here. This is my 14th year here, and it still feels very brand new. But it is also very true. The theater scene here is outstanding, and so is the music scene and the art scene and all kinds of different crafts and things that people make and do. It's just a wonderful, wonderful, vibrant place. And yet you don't really, it's sort of underground. It's sort of like there's always something going on in our city all the time. It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Alex, welcome to the program.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes, I'm Alex Colburn, if it were.
Hi,
as
Alex
it were.
Colburn.
And I got very lucky to be a part of Genesis. I'm playing Dr. Polidori, and the super strange circumstances that led me getting involved in ACT. My friend Billiel, who's not here right now, actually got me into the ISTF. And from there, I got to know everyone. I hadn't done theater in about 9 years since the end of high school. And
Wow.
I've just jumped right back into it, and I'm incredibly happy and grateful to be in this community again.
Yes, fantastic. Well, welcome to the community again. I think that that's absolutely wonderful that you're here. And I have seen all of you in some level or another, in some area or another. Aimee, you have brought, or sorry, Aimee, I meant to say Amanda. Amanda, you have brought together an incredible ensemble of people. And they several of them have mentioned Genesis. So why don't you start by letting us know a little about yourself and how you brought this collective together and move us along into Genesis.
Yeah, for sure. So my name is Amanda Ketting. I'm the artistic director of Artist Collective Theatre. It was a theatre company that started in Calgary, Alberta, 12-ish years ago.
Right on.
And yeah, and when we moved over here during COVID, when things started to settle back down and get back into the rhythm of it, we reached out to the community to see if there was space for another theater company, because it is a smaller community and everybody knows everyone, which is one of the loveliest things about this town, is like it has little town feel and big city feel all in one. And yeah, I feel very blessed to be here, and everybody in the community was like, yes, we need this type of a company that's a bridge between community theater and full on like union theater, and providing mentorship opportunities for people to really do fun and risky and avant-garde stuff and grow as a performer. And yeah, so we took the jump and took our company out of dormancy and opened it up, and we did Haunted House Hamlet, which was our first introduction, which was a very site responsive theater show, kind of choose your own adventure Hamlet. And then we took a really big jump on putting together a festival that we've done in another city in Alberta, and brought it here to see how it would work with all local people. And it was a very ambitious project, and I think a humble first year, but it was an amazing experience to work with so many local artists. We had, I think, 35 people in total, all local performers. And we traveled from Parksville and Nanaimo to produce 2 shows, and that went really well. And then Genesis, we were actually supposed to produce earlier this year, but due to some technical issues at the venue that we were planning to go to, it got delayed. And ironically, this is kind of my dream spot to put it in, because it's spooky and very ambient in its nature and suspenseful, and doing it during, the Hallow month around Halloween is just adds to the mystique of the show. And Genesis is about how Mary Shelley wrote and came up with the idea of Frankinstein in a couple weeks out in Lake Geneva with a bunch of other very famous European poets of the time. And it's a series of circumstances that helps her conjure up this idea. And for those of you who don't know, might know Frankenstein, and you see that character in all the Halloween decorations everywhere. Well, Mary Shelley is the mother of the Gothic era. We have like gargoyles and vampire stories and all of that kind of thing that really got even largely excited within our community because of her and creating this amazing story that even today people still read. And I mean, there's a remake of Frankenstein happening right now. So yeah, she's the reason we have this. And this story is really captivating about how she came up with this idea.
Wow. I love how you take very classic literature and you put a spin on it. I noticed that when you did your the two productions that you did in the summertime at Mafio Sutton, which were both absolutely extraordinary. Were there three or were there two? There were three, I think.
Well, there's three shows. One was through a guest presenter,
Right.
Murmur Art Collective. So that was
Right.
a movement piece. And then the two that were produced by ACT was Much Ado About Nothing and Alice's Wonderland.
But I love the way you did the twist on Much Ado About Nothing and how you brought the Nanaimo geography and the Nanaimo style of doing things and the history of us to the stage. It was just such a wonderful performance. And all of you guys, because I'm looking at some of you, all of you guys were amazing. I mean, there were so many people that were part of that production. Alice in Wonderland was extraordinary. You know, I was so impressed by that, as well as Haunted House Hamlet, which I did not realize, Amanda, that you had produced until much later on. It came up through another conversation that we were having, and I went, I didn't even realize that it was your production at that time. So I guess I have been a fan all along now, and I know that that our listeners are quite the fan as well. So tell me, what got you into the mode of taking Mary Shelley's story Genesis and putting that now to our audiences here in Nanaimo? What made you decide on that play? You said you wanted to do it earlier, and there was some changes, but what was the motive behind that play?
I'm intensely passionate about this play in particular. There's lots of versions of like Frankenstein plays out there, but there isn't something that delves into the creative genius that came from creating or was a part of creating the story. And being that Mary Shelley was in a time period where, I mean, being a female author was very uncommon, if at all
Absolutely.
heard of, and often was done under a different pen name that was male, or their male counterparts would take credit for their work, which happened a lot. To have a internationally renowned novel that outsold many novels out there, it is just kind of unheard of. And then the way that Mary Humphrey Baldridge, who's a Canadian playwright and one of the founders of our playwrights organization here in Canada, how she wrote it is so intriguing, because we see the world, the society that Mary lives in, and then we get to see her inner thoughts of what she really thinks. And sometimes she speaks her mind out loud to the people who are in the space, and sometimes we get to be present for what she's thinking to as an audience. And it's such a juicy script. Like, all the characters are so well-rounded. There's so much detail and nuance. I mean, Erin can speak to one of her monologues as Mary has, what was it, 13 beats in 9 lines.
It's the acting Olympics of jumping from one motivation to another, and containing all that. It's a challenge, but it's lovely.
How are you enjoying learning all the intricacies, Erin, of this play, and to play such a renowned and wonderful characters and human? What inspires you to do this role?
Oh, I mean, well, it's the dream to play women of that time period. I think is so interesting, because you really had to play to society, and you had to keep everything so contained and under the surface. And it's not the way that we live now, of course. But that's not to say that that inner life didn't exist for women of that time. So
absolutely,
this role is so interesting, because you get to play those two levels, like Amanda was saying, where you're your society level, presenting what you're saying, how you're responding, and then it just switches and we get to see into her inner life. And it is just, well, I think Amanda was saying in rehearsal the other day, we don't censor ourselves in our minds. So as an actor, that gives me permission to just go for it, like full send with the emotion, and don't hold back, because you wouldn't when you're talking to yourself in the mirror or whatever it is, your own inner monologue, you don't censor yourself.
It's very true. That's
honesty.
very, very true. When you're in the privacy of your own life, you don't. But absolutely, when you're in front of other people, you often will hold back. So it'll be interesting to see how you manage those two characters, or two people within the same character, to do that moving forward. Do we have Frankenstein in the house?
Well, isn't that a good question?
Right?
Like a very an intriguing ask in that yes, Frankenstein is, or the monster is a character in this show, but it is portrayed through various different people.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
rather than have it sort of within one frame, it's split apart. What are some of the aspects of Frankenstein that you bring out? Whoever wishes to answer this, it's up to you to share your character pieces. We have silence. We never have silence on this show. I'm shocked.
I think it's predominantly because people don't want to give things away too much.
And this is fair, of course.
Part of the suspense and the thrill of it too, but there are. Aimee, go right ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So I actually read the Frankenstein book at school, and I don't want to try and give anything away, like Amanda was saying.
Of course, I understand totally.
Yeah. For those who have read the book, when you watch the show, you can really see where Mary got the ideas and the characteristics from those around her, and wrote it into the book. And it's such a wonderful experience to see Mary's creative process of the book, because after having read it and how she submitted it anonymously, you kind of wonder, where did she get this intriguing idea to write about a man, like building a man and bringing him to life, and so you see that journey through the play, and yeah, it's little bits and pieces of everybody as a whole, I'd say. Not to spoil.
No, and again, we certainly want to, which is a great time to get that segue in there. If you haven't got yourself a piece of paper beside wherever you're watching this, may I suggest that you jump up and go grab one so that you can have something handy for when you want to get tickets for this play. And by the way, just out of curiosity, when you said it's during the month of October at some point, right? It's Hallow season. When is the play actually scheduled to open?
It's October 11th to the 19th.
Oh my gosh, it's coming up right away, like very quickly. And is it just going to play in Nanaimo again, or are you doing Parksville and Nanaimo both?
Only right now, we're only doing Nanaimo. So if you want to see this exciting piece of theater, you have to come travel. But we are doing it in a really neat location at the Bethleham Centre. And it's being performed in the round, which is pretty novel to see theater in the round. It means that there's audience in all four sides, and the stage is in the center. So it's very intimate, very candlelit, and kind of an exciting piece of theater experience for people of Nanaimo.
Wow, it sounds fantastic. Hopefully people will go and grab their papers, and we'll be able to give them some more information on that. Alex, for yourself, when you came back, you had mentioned at the start that you had been out of theater for some time and kind of brought yourself back into it. What brought you back to the stage?
Well, it was just fortunate. I live with Dalil, and he's been in the acting community for a long time, going to university and whatnot, and he was a part of ISTF and just said, "Hey, we need a role to be filled. Do you want to get back into it? I don't know if you do, because it's been a long time since you did theater." And I very gladly hopped in, and then I caught wind of auditions and figured I'd give it a shot.
And are you glad you did, or is it an intimidating part that you play?
It is intimidating. It's very challenging to try to go from having not acted for so long to jumping right into such an insane role. Dr. Polidori is an incredibly internal character. I don't have a lot that I actually say, but but I'm saying things throughout the whole play, and
For sure.
it's oh, I love it. It's I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'm so glad to have been given the opportunity to come back and do more acting again.
How exciting. Brendin, what role do you play in the show?
I actually don't play a role. I am the
that's
stage
right.
manager.
Yes.
I keep all of these people in check, making sure they're knowing their lines.
And if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, how do you round them up? Do you just, do they have extra set design that they must do? Give them that paintbrush and get them to start painting, or what?
Luckily enough, they're all really talented and really respectful of both the space and others
I'm sure.
around them.
I'm sure.
So I really don't have to do all that much wrangling other than asking people to come back up to rehearsal space or say we need the rehearsal space for a more intimate moment. Just asking them to step out, maybe run lines with me while Amanda does her work. And trust me, that work is so important and has shaped this show so much.
I have no doubt in my mind, Amanda clearly is very, very talented. She's brought some extraordinary people together, and I think that this is a very wonderful new opportunity for Nanaimoites to see your shows come to life. Ben, I understand you were also in Calgary when this all took place. So the two of you, I'm assuming you and Amanda were building Act in Calgary. Did you see a difference in the scene when you came from Calgary to Nanaimo? Was there that much of a transition for you?
No, we were very much welcome with open arms, and we came, I think, at a very interesting time in the theatre community over here. Things were changing with a lot of companies, I think, and so we really didn't want to come in, kick down the doors, and say, "Here we are. This is how we do things." It was very much a gentle ease into things with a show that we were very we had done before. Was very familiar to us, and one that was accessible and interesting, and gave people a feel of what we do well, which is theatre. You don't really expect, and I think we did that with Haunted House Hamlet, and I think Genesis does that as well.
Haunted House Hamlet was extremely unusual in the sense that it took there were many different plots going on at the same time. The show is going on in 4 or 5 different areas of the house in different, it was I was mentioning earlier before we started, it was my first time seeing that kind of theater, although I'd spent my years of my life in theater, and I'd never seen anything quite like that. And I wondered how difficult that was for you, because it was 4 or 5 different things. And when I say different things, they were different stages in the same house. So there was a play going on in front of you. There was a play going on beside you, behind you, around the corner, up at the top. I mean, it was so unusual. What on earth gave you such an incredible creative outlet to be able to do that the way that you did? That the thought pattern behind it must have been pretty wild.
Yeah, it was tremendously difficult, and I can't imagine what it was like for Peter to write it, Peter Elliott Weiss to write it. But it's it was a lot of fun, and it's a nightmare trying to figure out, thinking back on it, I look at that show with a lot of fondness, and that it was really fun. But at the time, it was just such a headache.
Well, I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, right? And after you've seen it, it's always something very, very different, as you go through it. Do you find that Genesis is kind of similar in the sense that you're doing theater in the round? Or is it still happening within the center? Everyone's together in the center, but the audience is surrounding. This is a very UK style of doing theater, actually. So I'm curious, what made you decide to do theater in the round with Genesis?
I think because the play is very the way it's written, it sort of screams for it to be intimate, and the most intimate way to set the audience, I think, is in the round. And
Yes.
that way, because most everyone is on stage at the same time, you can see, even if you can't make out what the two people are saying, let's say they're the focus, you can make out what one person is reacting to. And yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else has thoughts on that.
I mean, I'll just speak to the challenge that brings from acting in the round, and we call it backting, acting with your back, and making sure that you're pulling your performance. You're using your whole. It's a whole body experience, which is new for me. I've never done theater in the round, but it's very fun.
Yeah, it's very true, because typically you don't want your back to the audience. So, you know, it is going to be quite interesting to see how the audience receives this. Aimee, have you ever done anything like this before? Is this fresh for you?
Yeah, this is quite fresh for me. You know, coming from university, it's all like on the stage, and you know, you don't have your back. So at rehearsals, it's always, oh, you got to act with your back, and it's such an interesting concept to, oh, I have to act with my back. Like that's not something you'd think you'd ever
Not
have
at
to
all.
do.
Not at
um,
all.
yeah, and it's just so great, and it's challenging, but like in a great way. It's
Mm.
building these new levels, like for me as an actor, and I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone else, obviously, but it's just it's it's so fascinating, and just learning everything, and just having to like be on stage that whole time, and because there's no like wings or anything, you can't just hide backstage. It's
I
so
understand. Yeah, no, there's no other place to go. So everything that is going to happen, set design, set change, you know, physical change, all of it happens right there.
mhm.
How many cast are there in this, Amanda, in total?
So we have 5. So we have Lord Byron, who's played by Delil, and Percy Shelley, who's played by Ben Francis, Mary Shelley, who's played by Erin, and Polidori, or Dr. Polidori. We fondly shorten his name to just Polidori, is played by Alex. And then Claire Claremont, who's Mary Shelley's stepsister, is played by Aimee. And then the last character is the monster, who there's a bit of monster in all of us, and there's a lot of human in all of us. And so that's why it's kind of a combination as we see through the show. So it's
Absolutely.
really a neat experience. We've produced the show out in Edinburgh at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and we won a bunch of awards for it, and that
Oh,
was the first
wow.
time there, which is like pretty unheard of, actually. Usually you kind of have to be an established company to get that kind of traffic, but this show is the highest selling show in our venue at the time when we were there.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow, that was a very impressive, Amanda. Holy camole.
and
That's
that's one of the
very
reasons I wanted to
impressive.
bring it here, is because I think it's just it's a really fascinating show. It's Canadian written, so for a Canadian play to be knocking it out of the park like that, and we had a mix out there of Canadian and British performers. Yeah, it was really fascinating. We won the Best Overseas Production Award, Best Actress award for it as well. Our whole team was nominated for the show for different awards in there. So yeah, it was really interesting, and because it is that really visceral, vulnerable, and like intimate experience for the audience, it was just something that I was like, it would be really fun to bring it here and to provide. What I'm going for in theater is to create experiences that are beyond just theater. And there's nothing wrong with theater, don't get me wrong at all,
Of
but
course
the
not.
old version
Just
of theater was like an
push the
experience.
package a little bit. And I think your audience appreciates that package to be pushed a little bit as well.
Well, this has got a combination. It's going to appeal to the people who love classic theater and period pieces, and it's going to appeal to the people who like representation to be on stage, and it's going to appeal to the people who are literary geeks, because I definitely am one of those. and it's going to appeal to people who love suspense thrillers, and it's got risky stuff in there, intimacy.
Just a little risque, little something.
There's some intercourse moments and things like that. So it's a well-rounded production.
Mhm.
You know, and none of it is, in my opinion, like gratuitous. It's all very purposefully selected and tastefully done in order to elevate the art that is on stage. And the show could be, you could take away the lights, you could take away the sound, you can take away the costumes. Really, it's a showcase of a performer's ability. It's an incredibly challenging piece, and these performers are really rising to the challenge that is this work. And it is really, really hard. It's like taking Shakespeare and stepping it up a level, because there's so much sub-context that's happening and so many changes in power dynamics on the set, that it's fascinating. You're kind of like being a voyeur in the audience. You get to like peek into these people's lives.
How fantastic. Did you always want to do this work, Amanda? And was being part of something so rich always a part of your frame? Did you think about it as a young girl, or what brought you to the table? What brought you to the stage?
I mean, I've always been an artist. I think my earliest recollection, I was 4 and I wanted to be Shirley Temple, and I took dance lessons for that exact reason. And my mom
understood. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom, bless her heart, put me in like lots of dance classes and acting classes and things like that. I've just always been an artist. Directing came about because I love the storytelling aspect, and I love things that are challenging. Like, and I don't mean just for me as a director, but things that I can see will challenge a performer. I never tend to lean to cast someone in something that's going to be easy for them. I tend to cast them in roles that I know will develop them and challenge them and make them even better artists.
And move that dial. Yes,
you know?
yes, I'm with you 1000%.
Yeah.
Aimee, you had mentioned a few minutes ago, you know, that you were, you know, you started from a little bit at school and all of that. Did you ever see yourself doing these kinds of challenging roles, as Amanda has just suggested? Do you feel her gentle push in your character?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, like when I was little, I was on stage and I danced, and then I got into the world of acting, and I've always wanted to do like something harder and challenging, and Amanda has given me that opportunity, and I'm like so forever grateful for it, because Claire is just such an interesting woman to play and read about. She's very methodical with the things she does, and it's a great learning experience. It's very far from what you do in school with you know, playful Little Mermaid characters.
Right, a very, very different context. What have you learned from Claire, though? And as you develop her character, what have you learned about her and you playing her?
Yeah, she is a woman who, again, is very methodical and is kind of a step ahead of everybody in certain aspects. She's very much involved in the society of what women can and cannot do. And so she seems quite ditzy, but she is not. And playing her, I feel quite connected to her on an understanding level of the things of why she does and says the things she says, because there's always hidden content to it, I guess. And it's just so wonderful. I got to learn more about her playing her. Yeah.
Do you identify with her? Are there elements in this character that you see in yourself?
I'd say little bits of elements.
Yeah.
I don't plan things out that well, so probably not that way.
I understood. Yeah, some of the activities might be a little bit different for sure.
Yeah. But just her character, I guess, she's kind of overlooked a bit. and she has a lot to say that she doesn't. And I'd say in that kind of regard, I'd say I'm a quiet person most of the time. And so it has kind of brought me out of my shell. And so I did resonate with that a bit of being quiet and not saying what I should be saying. And
Isn't that awesome? Good for
yeah,
you. Good
thank
for
you.
you. Erin, I'm going to ask you the same question. Like, what is this character taught you? Who is she, and how close are you to her?
Well, it's interesting because Mary was quite a bit younger than I am when this happened in her life. I think she was 19, and I'm a bit beyond 19. But and I think of Mary, she reminds me so much. I had, when I was in high school and when I was a young, like a teenager, I had so many female friends who were intellectuals and argumentative and would love to debate with our male friends. And so I see that for Mary, because that's her mind is her power, and she isn't afraid of what people think of her. I mean, she is, but she pushes that boundary, and she speaks her mind. And for me, I recall back to my friendships, and I'm watching my peers do that. Of course, I wasn't the person pushing back. I was quite quiet and, keeping everything very internal. But so I think there's a great confidence to Mary that has been very fun to discover and live in. It's also very interesting playing someone who existed. Like, she's not an imaginary person. Like, she has journals that Amanda shared with us, that we, part of our homework when we were doing our table read was to go and learn as much as we could about these people who actually lived. And you go back and you read her journals. She had a joint journal with Percy Shelley. So it's all documented. You can go back and see that, and then you can also read her works. So there's so much wealth of information to really try to figure out who Mary is. But if I had to sum it up, I would say extremely intelligent, extremely deep depth of emotion. She had, unfortunately, a very tragic life. She had a lot of pain and loss and grief in her life. And I think that's as an actor, such a huge anchor to just sit in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
very, very smart, very tormented person. But there's also lightness in her as well, which is it's a very interesting dynamic to play.
If there was one character trait that she has that you will take with you moving forward, what might that look like for you?
Yeah. Yeah, her confidence, her will, I guess. Her will was very strong, I think. She had so much thrown at her in her life, from basically when she was born. The day she was born, just all this stuff was bombarded at her, and she persevered. So yeah.
Well done. Well done. Brendin, how are you finding the whole process of taking these incredible characters and as from the side, helping to ensure that these characters have the greatest opportunity to bloom and grow? What does that look like from your perspective?
From my perspective, especially since we're in the round, it's a lot of personal note taking. And just recognizing where people are in space and seeing exactly what is happening both with specific people and the entire stage. I have to look around a lot usually when we're doing a rehearsal just to make sure that everybody's in somewhat the right position, because if they're not where we put them originally, we might never see them again. They might just disappear into the stage, right?
Right.
And with this in the round style, it's making sure everything is where it needs to be all at once, because everything has its place, and everyone around the entire venue will be able to tell if something's just a little bit off.
Well, especially because you're working with so many backs, right? As you said, as everyone has spoken about, you're acting with your back in many, many possible ways. So it'd be interesting to see how you pull that all together from a stage manager perspective. Yeah, yeah. Alex, how close are you to your character? Do you have some similar parts of you and the character, or how are you night and day of that character, or are you very similar to the character? What do you think?
It's easy for me to see through his eyes, almost in a meta kind of sense.
Sure.
Polidori, even in his even in the journals that he wrote, he was
Mhm.
he observed a lot very keenly, and I can understand that. And being someone who does like to kind of sit back and let things happen and watch and see how things go on makes sense. In terms of our actual personal views, no, me and Polidori are not alike whatsoever.
Night and
Uh,
day.
yeah, he is not. It's evident in his journal that he is not. He does not have very savory views of most people. Then it
Ah,
aligns with his time,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm most certainly. And despite him being a doctor and a physician and having like a lot of understanding of, he should have a higher understanding of than he actually does on certain things. And it's interesting to see how that kind of changes the lens that he's viewing everything through.
If you were to play him in today's lens, as opposed to the historical component of it,
Mm-hmm.
what would you change in his character?
Oh, that's the thing. I think it would be interesting to have a character with the kinds of views and opinions that Polly
Hmm.
has in
Hmm.
the modern world. Maybe
Hmm.
not for a doctor, as he's pretty misogynistic and he has some really interesting ideas about like drug addiction and is very prejudiced that way.
Right.
And but having those people exist today, unfortunately.
They do.
And as much as I
Sadly,
don't
even
like them
still.
being doctors, it would
Yeah.
be interesting to see Polidori in a modern setting and seeing
Yes.
like the kinds of social groups he would end up surrounded by, because he definitely wouldn't be surrounded by artists, because a lot of modern artists do not agree with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no kidding. Do you identify with him in one or two character traits that you will take with yourself as you move into other areas of your life? Is there a piece of him
Hmm.
that will come along, an awareness perhaps?
There are a couple of instances where he kind of he plays off a lot like almost the bottom rung of like
Hmm.
a social ladder, and there's a couple of
Sure.
scenes where he does kind of stand up for himself and take his space, as it were. And I think
Yeah,
that's something that I can actually learn from Polly going forward, and learn to kind of take my space and not take too much grief from people in my personal life when it's unnecessary.
wonderful, wonderful. That's a great piece of wisdom just in that itself. Ben, it's you're up. Your character being married to the great Mary Shelley, who at the time was kind of hiding herself in a different way. What have you taken from this character and to be her on-set spouse?
Yes, well, yeah, Percy Shelley was a tremendously serious person,
Mm,
and I think he falls victim to that, and the
mm,
play illuminates that quality in
mhm,
him. Is that he is uh, very stubborn in his views of the world,
mhm, mhm,
um, and whether that be his politics or his atheism or his own poetry. Um, he truly believes that his poetry has the potential to change the world, and
mm,
he believes the human race is enslaved from itself. And throughout the play, we see this tip of this iceberg that he's picking away at, this unutterable beauty that he's discovering. And he
mhm.
truly believes that if he can just actualize it, that it will save us all. And that's been really interesting to discover and explore throughout the rehearsal process. I did play this role before when we were in Edinburgh, but that was such a quick turnaround. I haven't been able to. I wasn't able to research and delve as deep as I would have liked. So this has been a great opportunity to do that.
In today's time, would you have liked him? Would have he been your friend?
I don't. I can't say really. I would. It's sort of the type of person you like to have a chat with for a couple hours and then have some time away from. I don't know if I'd be friends with that sort of person.
There you go.
Yeah,
See,
as I get older and as I get older as a person and as an artist, I'm finding a thirst for knowledge that I didn't always have. So that's something I understand and relate to.
I think that's the beauty of getting older. You know, there were times, and I think all of our lives when we were younger, where we looked at the world a different way, or we see the world a different way. And I think when we look at characters that are written by such great artists as this, the curiosity of what was life then, what is it now, how do those two intersect with each other, was it that much different back then, taking like aside from the community views or style of view to what it is today. It makes me curious especially when we talk about the classics the way we are. Amanda, you've put together something quite extraordinary. You and your team are an incredible ensemble. It's been such a great pleasure to talk with all of you and to spend this time. I always have that little piece of wisdom that I ask people to share at the end. So before I get there, because we just have a few more minutes left, I want to make sure that people have got their pen and paper, because we told them to go get it a little while ago. Let's make sure they've been on task and that we can give them how they can get tickets to this extraordinary program. Amanda, how do people get tickets to this show?
Well, you can go to ACT Theatre, so ACT, and then theatre spelled the Canadian way, theatre.ca/tickets. And you can get our tickets right there. You can purchase at the door. However, because of the intimate seating, it is very limited. There's only 50 seats a night available, and tickets are selling quickly. So we do recommend advance booking to ensure. And because of again, the nature of how the show is being produced, there's not late admittance until intermission, basically. So
Understood.
be sure that you get there early and on time so that you can see the show. And we run the October 11th to October 19th. We'll have 2 shows on the weekend, a matinee and an evening. And other than that, that's our show.
It sounds like it's going to be an absolutely wonderful, wonderful feast for the heart, for the ears, for the eyes, for all of our senses. I think it's going to be grand. I look forward to seeing it, as I have enjoyed all of your productions. October the 11th to 19th, it's only 1 week. That's quick. So get your tickets, get them now. Make sure that you reach out to Artist Collective Theatre, Amanda Cutting and the team. You have a Facebook page as well, don't you?
We sure do, yeah.
Yeah. So what's your do people just look up ACT Theatre on Facebook, or?
Yeah, it's Artists Collective Theatre. And you'll see it. Our logo is the Mona Lisa. So you can't miss.
Perfect. Perfect. How fitting is that? All right. As we close out this show, I want to thank all of our listeners on CHLY 101.7 FM for tuning in to today's program. Make sure you get your tickets. And if you haven't already, this is an incredible group of people and they do some wonderful work for our community. I think everybody should just, even if you go and see one play a year, make it this one. It'll be a great one for you for sure. So Amanda, as we close out the program today, I'm curious if we were to take away one piece of wisdom, or if any of you have a piece of wisdom that you would like to imbibe on our audience and our listeners, our watchers on our YouTube channel, or on our Rogers television program, what would you want people to know about all of this?
I mean, from a community aspect, this is a great piece of theater to support your local community. For a theme to take away, there's a bit of monster in all of us. It's just whether or not we let it come forward or it stays in the background.
Yes, yes, that a vision to become self-aware, see our
Mhm.
all of our good and all of our not so good, all of our character traits that come through. Does
Yeah.
anyone else have something they'd like to share as we close out?
I would say that these these people were real people, and they were poets, and very serious poets, and they did not talk like regular people. But what the play, I think, brings to light is that they were real people, and um, they there's a tremendous amount of comedy in the play, and it's very
Mhm.
accessible. And I think that's what people might not see looking at the cover of this play.
Interesting. Interesting. And you're right. These were real people that are experiencing in their time real things, real issues. We may have different issues now, but we're still people that have gone through whatever moment that we're in our lives. Thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it. Amanda and all of your team. Thank you all, Brendin, Erin, Aimee, Ben, and Alex. Thank you all for being part of Act 3 today. I hope you guys have a spectacular day. And to our listeners, I hope you enjoy the day as well. We look forward to seeing you next time on Act 3.